So I was born in Mexico City, on the outskirts, in a city called Los Reyes, La Paz. Um, Growing up, our lives were pretty good for my parents and I. My dad had a furniture store, my mom had a jewelry store and clothing as well. So we were pretty comfortable. But around the time when I was born was, when NAFTA was coming into effect, the economy was taking a downturn, and there was just more and more crime in our neighborhood. So eventually, my parents decided to come to the United States, get visas for a wedding. But once we got here, they saw how great it was and decided to stay. So we just overstayed our visas. My dad started off by doing carpentry here. And I guess it wasn't that much of a change for him. He'd always been working. My mom would just be at home taking care of us. And yeah, thanks to my parents' hard work, I was able to just focus on school. We got here when I was 2.5. My whole childhood, I had no idea that I was undocumented. My parents sometimes, they would talk about visiting Mexico, and I would ask, when are we gonna go? When are we gonna go? And they would say, oh, your papers are being processed. You have to wait for your passport or visa or something. And so that shut me up. Didn't really worry about it until I was 16 in high school, and this college credit form came back from my school saying that I had used a false social, or a social that didn't belong to me. And so then I took that to my parents and I said, oh, you guys gave me, the wrong number or something. And they told me, oh, it's actually your brother's. So that's when everything just dawned on me, and I became best friends with Google to figure out how to get into college.
And who's
Google. Google. Google's.
Oh, Google.
I became best friends with the Google.
Okay.
Just scholarships for undocumented kids, schools that accept undocumented students. I did as much research as I could. And yeah, that was like probably the first time that I really me puse las pilas and just started working towards a, definite goal. And it worked out. Well, it was right when I was about to start thinking about college that I figured out I was undocumented. So from my research, I found that, Cal State's CSUs at the time, they had no financial aid for undocumented students. And the ones that did, that accepted students and gave them financial aid, were the most prestigious schools, pretty much. The Ivy League schools like University of Chicago, Georgetown, some liberal arts colleges, not too many though. It was a very small list, but they were very hard to get into, and luckily, because of the preparation my parents had given me, I felt that I was in a good position to apply and hopefully be admitted. So I had a pretty narrow list, only like 20 schools. And I just went all out, got fee waivers for all of them. I was just like day and night thinking like, where am I gonna go? How am I gonna do this? How to perfect every aspect of my application. And it worked. I got into several, probably most of them, with either most of my financial need was covered, or in some cases I got full rides. I got into a couple schools early, but I decided, okay, I'm gonna wait until finally one day. It was January 11th, and I remember that because my mom always said 11 was my lucky number for some reason. That day I got a phone call from a Harvard admissions officer, and they told me, you are likely to be admitted. As long as nothing changes in your academic record, we're gonna send you a letter saying that. And I was like, damn, so I'm in, I guess. And that was it. I canceled the rest of my applications so that my friends at school, who were also undocumented, could have higher chances of getting in. And I was just happy. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna go to Harvard.
Wow. And that was before the DACA program
Yeah.
commenced?
Yeah,
So
a year before.
Do you remember the day, or do you remember where you were and what you were feeling
When it was announced?
Obama announced it?
It was the summer. It was either spring break of, let's see, he announced it, I think it was June of 2012. and then August or September was when it came into effect. So it was summer break from freshman year of college. I was just waking up, and it was pretty eerie because just like when 9/11 happened, I was waking up and my mom was glued to the television just like watching, and she's like, Daddy's, look, mira, mira, mira. And this time it was good news. And I saw it and I was like, wait, does this mean, I can work, get a license, maybe even travel? And yeah, I was just totally shocked because I had not been following politics until then, so I didn't know it was coming.
And how do you think that's made your life better now?
I mean, there's just no fear, or less fear when I'm driving, That's probably the biggest, most immediate thing for me, because like getting into a car and, having to live your life, I would always be worried, like, oh, what if there's a retén, or, what if I make a mistake and, I get deported, or I get a ticket, or I get the car taken away, which is probably worse than all the other two, because then my dad would just get mad at me. But yeah, besides that, I'm able to work. And like whenever a company or for whatever reason I have to submit my tax forms or my social, I have what is required. Like I don't feel like I'm hiding or like I have to finagle my way into a position or, get money to feed myself. Like I'm legit, so to speak.
How long did it take for that to happen?
It's several applications, because one is the application so you can't be deported, and one is the application for a work permit, and then there's applications to be notified via text of your application status, and then there's it's like 4 or 5. You have to go pretty far back in your history, like all your addresses you've lived at, what dates you've lived there, any names, aliases you've used, any times you've entered or left the country, where you were born, your birth certificate. Yeah, pretty much everything about yourself you have to submit. Driven. I stayed up and waited until the application went live the first day, and I just, ran through it. Filled out everything, went through my family's documents to pull everything that I needed. Yeah, I mean, now I'll use an attorney because it's more risky and you have to be just very exact under the new administration. But back then I was like, well, I'm going to apply by myself and see if I get it. Sort of disbelief, because